This is Reverse Reset Restore, the podcast that aims at creating new ways of living and being from the inside out. I'm your host, Sally, and I believe in the power of curating my own life by the choices I make. It may not be an easy journey, this thing we call life, but it is a worthwhile one. Change comes from within. We are back with the second of 3 episodes, a series looking at different strategies you can employ for changing your life. Now, last episode we delved into 5 techniques you can use for understanding and changing your thinking by noticing the noise, flipping the script, reframing your beliefs, using journaling, and the act of cultivating an attitude of gratitude. If you haven't listened to that episode yet, I encourage you to go ahead and do that ahead of listening to this one. I'll link that episode in the show notes below, but of course you're always welcome to stay and listen to this one in the moment. In this episode, we'll be talking through the tips and techniques I've used personally to change the way I react to feelings, and these are strategies you might find resonate with you. Just as thoughts are the stories we tell ourselves, feelings, and by extension physical pain and disease, are the language of the body. Our feelings allow us to examine our responses to the world around us and act as a kind of safety check for how we perceive the situations we are in and our reaction to them. Now, I just mentioned that physical pain and disease and illness are also part of the language of the body, and I will be touching briefly on that here. But these will be things I will discuss in future episodes because I think that pain and disease are the symptoms or effects of either suppressing or nullifying our feelings. Just like last episode, we're looking at 5 different strategies that you might want to use when excavating the feelings we perceive as negative interactions in our world. These strategies include acknowledging feelings, get curious, label your emotions, seek help, and surrender. Somehow, we think every negative feeling we might experience is something to be afraid or ashamed of. Feelings are an essential part of how we communicate to ourselves. Most of us have been taught that our feelings are too much or need to be controlled or they're unimportant. Even as babies and toddlers, some of us have been denied our right to express feelings. And that suppression is extremely damaging, especially when it happens in our formative years. Maybe this is your situation, where as a child you were denied the ability to express any type of distress, or you were mocked and teased for being seen as emotional. There were times in my childhood that various people in my life told me to not be so emotional or that I shouldn't act like a drama queen. Isn't that a sledgehammer of a sentence that people impose upon us because they think we're too emotional? I was taught by some people that my feelings made other people feel uncomfortable. Not that they said this exactly, but it was this unspoken understanding, even if I didn't consciously understand it, that my crying or my anger or whatever emotion I was expressing that wasn't happiness and smiling was not an acceptable response, no matter how warranted it might be. Squash your feelings, suppress, restrict, swallow, ignore, often to save someone else the uncomfortable dilemma of acknowledging their own emotions. Have there been times in your life when you noticed that whenever you started to express any perceived negative emotion, the people around you visibly changed? They avoided eye contact, they squirmed in their seats, or maybe even vocalized for you to stop that or don't cry. And so I learned, as I am sure so many of us have, that I would feel shame and guilt and a sense of not being good enough when I let my emotions get in the way or be, to those around me, too big and expressive. Ironically, when you have an ease of access to your emotions, the world perceives this as a weakness or a character flaw. I've always thought my ability to flow with my emotions was actually a strength, a gift in a world which is trying to rob you of expression. It's kind of been my superpower, but it's hard to ignore the judgments when being emotional is seen as something bad, something weak, something less than. So, many of us learnt coping strategies, be they food, drugs, sex, gaming, and yes, even the seemingly good ones, like going the extra mile at work or volunteering all our free time for a good cause as a way to avoid exposing our true, authentic selves. This avoidance ultimately lies in our false beliefs of unworthiness and the fear of being rejected for being who we are. We've gone out of our way to try to minimize that from happening, often hurting ourselves in the process as our habits keep us separate and as we either deny our emotions or let them run feral. Our first strategy, acknowledge feelings, is a U-turn to those coping skills. It requires you to confront your emotions head on, and that is a practice that takes time to get comfortable with. A lot of us have learned ways to cope in the world by shoving down our feelings. When we can learn to sit in the space of the feeling we are experiencing, whether you feel something that makes you feel uncomfortable or anxious or scared, we can begin to heal from all those falsehoods we've been told all our lives. We know that those feelings have a correlating thought running parallel to it. Remember that feelings, like pain, is a way that our body is communicating to us. Feelings are felt in the body, whether they are good or bad. I now acknowledge the feeling, offering no judgment or shame or revulsion, just a curiosity to understand it and give it as much love as I can possibly muster right where I am in that moment. Marianne Williamson writes in her book, A Course in Weight Loss, when any pain, difficulty, frustration, or challenge emerges, try to see it, honor it, bear witness to it, and receive it as part of your healing. So when we feel something that we don't want to feel or we've been taught to avoid, instead of ignoring it or minimizing it or reacting to it, we need to simply acknowledge it. Here's the thing about feelings. They can't hurt you. It's just a feeling, and it's not you. When it comes to our feelings, there are two things we generally do. We'll either cling to our feelings as though they are a representation of who we are, or we'll shove them down and away, out of sight and mind, at least on the surface. So, if you are feeling angry, for example, you need to acknowledge that. This acknowledgement leads into the second strategy, get curious, which will seem at first a little weird. Just go with it. Nobody except you is privy to this conversation. Acknowledging the feeling opens the door for us to ask it questions. Remember, we're going to do this in a loving and non-judgmental way. We're just being curious here. Firstly, the way I want you to get curious is by checking in with your body. Thoughts that are led or accompanied by worry, anxiety, anger, or fear will always also be felt in your body. Feelings are tied to the body. That's why they're called feelings, because you will actually feel their presence in your body. Where are your feelings showing up in a physical manifestation? I can't tell you how many years of debilitating pain I have lived through without fully understanding how my thoughts and my feelings were having a physical impact on my body. I just thought that waking up with headaches every day, having multiple migraines every week, chronic neck pain, and a host of other physical issues were my lot in life. I shocked myself when I started to speak to my body and ask it to tell me why it was feeling a certain way. Asking your body to speak to you sounds cuckoo, I know, but it does actually work. So if you're feeling angry, for the example, just note where you are holding that anger in your body. Is it in your chest, your hands, your face? Pay attention to how your body is physically aligning itself to that feeling and that thought. So you might say something along the lines of, I acknowledge this anger I'm experiencing right now, and I feel it in my chest and how my neck muscles are feeling tight, my hands are balled up, and my breathing is faster. What happens when you give yourself the space to acknowledge the feeling and the accompanying body response? You can then more easily choose to move away from that. Moving away from the feeling could be as simple as acknowledging it and then stating you choose to let it go and release it from your body and mind. And as you state this, actually physically remove the feeling from your body. So if your brow is furrowed, relax it. If your hands are bunched up, shake them off. This physical action will help you release the energy behind the feeling and the thoughts that are likely now working their own little magical stories in your mind. Or, if you're feeling really brave and curious, ask some questions. Some good questions to get you started might be, what are you trying to tell me, body? How long have I been feeling this way? What do I need to do now to release this feeling? Why am I feeling this way? When you ask this question, then still your mind and wait in the silence. What will happen is that you'll get an answer. For me, it's usually a word, another feeling word. The answer might surprise you. Explore it further. Ask more questions. So in the example of feeling or being angry, you ask yourself, why am I feeling so angry? This goes beyond the actual real-life reason for the initial anger response. So maybe I originally got angry because someone cut me off in traffic like the jerk they are. That seems like a good reason to get angry, right? Justified anger even. But do you notice what happens in those seconds that you get angry? How long do you sit in that anger? Do you take it with you for the rest of the day? Where does it go in your body? Is there something behind the anger, something deeper? Do you notice that you feel angry all the time? Or are you easily angered by the smallest things? Noticing how often you feel angry or sad or scared or anxious allows you to explore the real why behind it. Get Curious is all about asking open questions to get to the root of why you may be persistently in a certain emotional state. No one wants to be angry or sad or depressed, even if they say they do. Ask the feeling questions. This takes practice and may seem silly at first, but ask and you shall receive. Asking the questions can lead you to the heart of discovering something about yourself that is preventing you from being able to live in the here and now. I gave an example of a feeling I had a while back in the bonus episode, Doubt is Fear's Bravado. And if you need a real life example of how you can use this technique, that episode might help. Also, a word of warning. This technique will likely make you cry. Let the tears flow. They are healing. You've stored away a lot of pain and sorrow and stifled emotions which are festering away inside your body. Releasing them through tears is absolutely an okay way to release them from your body. Let that pent up energy go, because otherwise it is just going to hurt you if it isn't already, by showing up as disease, addictions, pain, or isolating you from others. Our third technique is label your emotions. We often try to avoid or minimize our emotions, especially if they are dredging up the pain of our past or the pain that we're experiencing in that moment. This technique is different than asking your feelings questions and exploring the feeling-body connection of strategy number 2. There are a few different ways in which you could do this. The first is to use a pen and paper and write down your feelings, almost like a shopping list. You could mind map it by putting "I feel" in the middle of the page and then write them down and branch off of each in further exploration. You might choose to speak them out loud. If you're artistic or like visual cues, you could draw a picture of the body and then write or colour the areas where your current feelings reside. The point here is to call your awareness to the feeling that's so desperate to get your attention. Labeling your emotions is known as an effective way to help you bring your reactions under control and reduce both the psychological and physiological distress, because we often have trouble sitting with uncomfortable emotions or we work hard to avoid them altogether. The act of labeling them allows us to be empowered to see what's going on behind the feeling. You're not so much asking the what or why of the feeling you may be experiencing. You're just calling it out by name. I often try to label all the words that kind of link to what I'm feeling. So in the example of being angry, I would also write or say, I'm frustrated, I'm annoyed, I'm fuming, I'm furious, I'm pissed off, etc. However you choose to label the emotions, make sure you engage your body so that you're releasing some of the energy of the feeling. I know that I've kind of said this several times now, but it's really important, and I want you to understand that moving the energy that would otherwise be trapped in your body is really important part of the process of getting rid of some of that excess emotion and feeling and understanding it better. You don't want to hold on to the feeling or keep it inside your body where it can continue to make you sick, create disease, or cause health issues because you've internalized it. Our fourth strategy is seek help. Sometimes we may not have been taught how to manage our emotions. Most of us who are feeling stuck in this area have not necessarily had good role models for how to self-regulate emotions in a healthy way, and that is simply because we've learnt the same coping mechanisms as our parents, who learnt from theirs and who learnt from theirs. There are generational patterns in most families of behaviours and expectations that are handed down from parents to children. So there's really no judgment to be had. Everyone has just done the best they could do with the skills and knowledge they had. And unless someone in your family decided to break the familial chains, it's not surprising that we're made in the same image of our parents, that our views and concepts of the world are closely linked to that of our parents and our forefathers. I'm very fortunate that my parents did break the chain of some of their family's patterns. But my mum and I were discussing this the other day, and she said that she's recognised she still carried a lot over into our lives simply because she didn't know any better or wasn't even aware that she'd done so. There was no malice or intent. It's just, she was running the software program she'd been instructed by, as were her parents and theirs before them. Sometimes our feelings, especially if they are rooted in trauma or neglect, require more than what we can do for ourselves and more than what our friends can do. Seeking out help to work through them can be an important part of our restoration. A reputable psychologist or counsellor is always a worthwhile investment in your healing. I know that it can be prohibitively expensive to engage the services of a professional, but it is worth it because you are worth it. And if finances or your current situation don't have room to make that an option, then there are other places you can get support. Many companies provide employee assistance programs and services. There are any number of helplines or web services that provide assistance, or at the very least, access to articles and techniques that you can utilize. Don't let money stand in your way of getting help. And don't let pride stop you either. Pride is just another way fear tries to hide itself and keep you from your truth. Also, be wary of who you seek your help from. I know we often think our friends can help us, and they do. But unless they have a remarkable capability to be objective and non-judgmental, they may not be able to offer you assistance that isn't based in their own fears and bias and expectations. And some friends and family don't know how to keep confidences or even how to deal with your trauma. A licensed therapist does. And last in today's strategy is the act of surrender. This practice comes again from Marianne Williamson's book, A Course in Weight Loss. It's the very first lesson in which she asks the reader to tear down the wall. Each of us have built walls around us as a form of protection and alienation. The foundations of these walls might have been established by a thought, which has been accompanied by a feeling, shame, fear, anger, etc. But it's the mind's ability to build these words into fantastical stories that have raised them higher and higher over the years. Surrendering is an act of self-compassion. It is recognizing that you don't need to carry the weights you've been holding on to. You might want to try the exercise Marianne suggests in her book, which is to write down each feeling that you have used to build your wall, acknowledging them and stating how they have been used to defend yourself from others. When I did this, I went one step further and I made a collage of a brick wall and all the feelings that I had used to build it. I like using visual elements in my journey towards healing, but you might find writing a list or writing the emotions on a strip of paper and throwing them into a jar works best for you. Hey, you might even decide to build a wall out of your kids' Lego bricks to represent your thoughts or feelings and then enjoy dismantling it in a physical way to interact with this exercise. Again, what I'm going to suggest is that whatever technique you choose to use in looking at the thoughts and emotions you've used to build a wall between yourself and the world, make it tangible, make it real, make it physical so that you are engaging your body in the process as well. And take your time to explore each thought and feeling and notice where the feeling holds itself in your body. Understanding the physical reaction we have in response to a feeling can be extremely beneficial in how you can utilize that knowledge moving forward. It's similar to people who have learnt the signs of an anxiety attack and are able to use techniques to help them avoid it or move through it more rapidly. Things like running cold water over your hands can help bring you to the present moment and dissipate the anxious feelings that were overwhelming you. Getting your body involved in this process will anchor you in the here and now and allow you to then change your racing thoughts to positive ones that will see that anxiety recede back into the abyss from whence it came. Another way to surrender? Just do it. When you notice the negative thoughts you're having or the negative feelings that are stirring up within you, acknowledge and surrender. Let go. It's just making the conscious decision to do that which will bring you some peace. You don't have to have a solution or you don't have to have anything figured out. Just stop trying to control the situation and let go. It's an amazing feeling to experience when you can do this. We've made it. 5 techniques to help you navigate your feelings to create change in your life. Acknowledge feelings, get curious, label your emotions, seek help, and surrender. We've still got 5 more strategies for change to look at coming up in the next episode, where we'll be focusing on some techniques in changing behaviors. If thoughts are the stories we tell ourselves and our feelings are the language of the body, Behaviours are the stage on which we perform. I'll be posting these 5 strategies on Instagram at Reverse Reset Restore ahead of our next episode. And you can join the conversation on my Facebook page, also Reverse Reset Restore. If you enjoyed this episode, please leave me a review and hit that subscribe button so you'll be the first to know about the next upcoming episodes. Leaving us some food for thought, today's quote is from Elizabeth Gilbert, author of Eat, Pray, Love. Your emotions are the slaves to your thoughts, and you are the slave to your emotions. It is my hope that by using some of these strategies, we will instead find freedom.